Welcome to In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay, where we get candid about what it takes to negotiate effectively. You'll learn from the challenges and successes of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. We help you change the nature of your negotiations and get more from every deal you do.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to be here with you guys. It's been ages since I've done a broadcast, but for those of you who've been watching our posts in the last week, we've been really talking a lot about the art of listening. And I've worked with people who have had hearing impairment challenges, and I've always observed that they have just these really unique ways of listening that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of, because I get to rely solely on my hearing. And so I had this thought that the hearing world is missing something that the hearing impaired actually get to pick up, because they listen in a very different way. And so I just discovered that one of the most amazing people I've met in the last 3 years is hearing impaired. And I had no idea. And he was a guest on this show on my In the Ven Zone podcast about a year ago. And I would never, ever have guessed or suspected even that he had suffered hearing loss for most of his life. And so he has some incredible tools that he has developed and adapted to be able to listen in an environment where he actually physically is challenged to hear. And so I wanted to have a conversation about what that is and what can we learn from him from that perspective that we can take into our listening to be better at listening. And so I want to welcome back my friend, Tim Forrest, who's amazing. Can you just remind the listeners what it is you do? Because you are so good at what you do. You are a genius. Amazing.
Thank you. So I just real quick, I began loading food trucks in school and was just doing that to just make it and finish out college and university. And then I ended up, 35 years later, I'm still in the food industry. So that took me, loading trucks has been my career. 25 years I've had my own consulting company. But let's just go right back and answer your question. So I'm a consultant in the food industry. I help food brand owners, food entrepreneurs grow their business and achieve millions of dollars, thousands of new locations. And many of them have become millionaires. They've become very successful. And just what I've done is I just take my systems and processes, and I can meet someone that's selling food on a little table in a farmer's market, and we take my processes and work with them, and we can grow their business. One of those people, they've done 66 million. Met them in a farmer's market. They're doing 66 million. They've done $66 million worth of product today.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. See, I told you guys he was a genius. Amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. I think it's the processes and systems and what I've learned over the 35 years and all the businesses I've worked with, all the systems I've worked with. I can take another one. I can tell you another one. Dana, we started just a couple of years ago as a bartender, and he had an idea for a product. So he's done $10 million in sales with his spice. Just since 2018, he was just entered into the congressional record for his small business, and they're employing like 50 people now. Other products have done over $100 million. I've helped people turn businesses around, sell them for over $100 million. But it all began from me loading those food trucks. So I learned the back doors, the loading docks of basically all the channels in the food industry. So club stores, restaurants, grocery stores, Major League Baseball, stadiums, airports, zoos, theme parks. And so from actually loading product, from the truck and on the loading docks and going in the back doors of all these different channels, I ended up knowing so well how the business ran that it's nothing for me to just walk into a major league stadium and get business for a food company. I understand the process because I did it from the back door. It's just so different than when you learn it. I did eventually. So I ended up working with the largest food brands in the world. So I worked with Nestle and Unilever for about a decade. And so they trained me on all their paradigms of being market leaders and everything you do to manage a market, understand your data, all of that. But unlike so many of the other folks that I worked with, I actually had been on the loading docks. I'd actually come in the back door. And so I just understood it so well. It just worked really well, really, really well.
So your career has been just incredible. And I watch you on social media and I watch what you do with your brands. And we've had a number of conversations about it. And it is truly remarkable. So tell us a little bit about how your hearing impairment affected you as you were kind of developing, you're moving into your career and what that meant.
Yeah. So you're curious about moving into my career. Let's just go back and just really define what my situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was born with a congenital hearing loss. And so basically I cannot hear, it's basically a cookie bite loss in that I cannot hear around the human voice, except for about 10%. So 10% of human voice I can make out. And what's happened is, and I've learned this over time, is my brain has figured out how to attempts to fill in the spaces of what I'm missing, and I'm able to concentrate, and I don't even really know that I'm doing it, but I'm able to concentrate. And I end up being able to make out what the conversation is, usually with concentration. And so I really didn't but we did not understand this as a child when I was a child. And so I couldn't speak because I couldn't hear. And also I had some learning disabilities from that as well. So because we're going back, it's over 50 years ago. We're going back so far, they didn't really understand at the time. And so I was fortunate in that my parents were able to get me in the Atlanta Speech School for 3 years. And so they worked, and that worked well enough so that I could learn to talk and learn to speak. But we never really fully understood the hearing loss, how it impacted and was a part and played into all this. There were a lot of other things. So I wanted to do everything possible I could to forget that I ever went to the Atlanta Speech School. I buried it. I didn't want to think about that I had any issues. I wanted to be totally normal. I wanted to be just like the other kids. I didn't want to, have to go on the bus across town and go to the special school. And I did everything I could to forget it, to bury it. And I actually forgot about it for many, many years until later in college. I started looking around thinking about my family and, I was about to graduate and just thinking, wow, how did all this happen? And I knew it, and I realized it was the Atlanta Speech School and dealing with those issues. That's the situation that I was faced, but I really didn't, I never really thought I had a hearing impairment because I just buried it. I ran away from it. And I did not understand the level that I had. So we got married, Tracy and I got married in college. And so every year, if not monthly, she's like, Tim, you need a hearing aid. You need a hearing aid. I do not need a hearing aid. I told her, no, I do not. I do not. And I was just not going to admit that I needed that. And so finally, just this year, I ended up going into 3 audiologists and going through the process. So I have hearing aids now, which has been incredible and so exciting. But to answer your question, now to get to your question, so I didn't realize, I just thought this, just the way I worked, just the way I operated as far as how I worked in how I worked in business, how I worked in sales calls, how I worked with food buyers. And so it's real simple. I had to take notes. And so the first thing that I did, I discovered in college, I could remember anything that I took notes to. I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't remember anything if I didn't take notes. So for some reason, I didn't know it had anything to do with my hearing. I would just take notes. So I'm a copious note taker. And
Mm.
so what happened, all the buyers, all the meetings I went to, everyone I would meet with in business. So I've been in business, I've been in business for 25 years. I've been in the food industry for almost 40 years, but I'm a copious note taker. I just fill up notebooks with notes. And I don't even need, once I take the notes, generally I don't need to refer back to them for some reason. I can just, I remember the meetings. I remember all the meetings.
Mhm.
I can remember the first $1 million. This was right after I graduated school, and this became the first $1 million account of mine. It became the largest of the division I was working in. It became the largest client of that division. And I can remember I'd worked on these notebooks for a long, long time. I worked on these notebooks for like 4 days of work for this presentation. And then I got in there, and my buyer looked at him and said, "Tim, I'm not going to read this book." And I may have told you about this in our negotiation. And he slung it across the desk at me. He said, "I'm not reading. We're not going to read this book." He said, "Get out your your notepad. Take notes here, and we're going to do these four things and take down the notes." And I wrote down the four things we were going to do. I took down the notes, said yes sir, and went to work and came back. It took a period of time, but I took care of the four things he wanted taken care of. He bought over $1 million that first year. He's bought many. I mean, became a major account over time. So, but that is the number one, is I have to take notes. The number two thing, and we talked about this before, is that I cannot, because of my dependency on active listening, and really I have to almost force myself to listen and in order to comprehend. I cannot. I don't get into. It's difficult for me to get into any kind of a confrontation or any kind of an emotional situation when I'm listening, and so I have to stay calm and I have to keep the situation calm. But I've always thought I'm not a good salesperson because of that, because I can't emotionally take the buyer somewhere. But I think it's ended up helping me, though, really, with the professional buyers I deal with. And so all the sales tricks, sales books of the when I was coming up, I didn't use those. I couldn't use
Mm.
those type of methods. And so I just became a consultative salesperson. So everything I did was attempting to bring value, and also it was laid out and planned ahead of time. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and go in. And if something came up in the meeting, I'd have to leave the meeting to really respond to it. I wasn't that quick. I am not. Prior to the hearing aids, it was very difficult for me to be quick on my feet. And I equated that with, it was something to do with my thinking or my brain. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't fast enough. I wasn't smart enough to think on my feet. It never occurred to me that my hearing impairment was part of the issue. And so I'm sitting there like trying to listen, trying to hear the words and trying to make out the words and fill in the blanks. And I naturally do that. And I'm losing that ability now with the hearing aids, but I naturally will fill in the words. And so if I get in an argument or get into emotional, it just doesn't work. So I've been talking a lot.
No,
Christine, is this?
this is amazing. So, I mean, I've heard so many things. So, one, you concentrate on listening.
Yeah,
You act. We talk a lot about how listening is a full contact sport,
yeah,
essentially. That it takes more than just our ears to listen, but you're listening. You're like really engaged, and you're physically engaged by taking notes.
yeah,
I love that you manage how you react emotionally by staying calm in situations so that your counterparts also can stay calm and they're not getting overly emotional about
yeah,
something. I love that you naturally had to take anything and evaluate it after a meeting, right? And come back to it. And so often what I find as a hearing with having my hearing is that I'll have a tendency to react in the meeting, and that doesn't always serve me well,
yeah,
right? So being able to take that time to go, okay, well, I've got to go process this. I've got to go look at it. It gives you time to continue to control any emotional reaction. It gives you the ability to evaluate a proposal against your own objectives, which when we're making decisions at the table, we don't have that opportunity. I had somebody text me yesterday, and she is in the negotiation of a lifetime. And she brought together two huge real estate investors, and it has the potential for being this massive deal for her. And, she was like, I'm so nervous. I don't know. She was just really nervous. And I said, give yourself time to walk away. Don't agree to something at the table. If it's a big give, make sure you're walking away. And that's something that you did as a result of your hearing situation, but that you developed as a compensation mechanism that you didn't even know you were compensating for, but that was super effective. The other thing you mentioned is consultative selling, right? You and I are roughly the same age, and the notion of consultative selling, shockingly, was just kind of being talked about and developed, and coming to the forefront a few years ago, and tons of people still don't do it. But that need to be able to listen to what your counterpart, your customer, your client is trying to tell you, and really kind of it elevates their level of importance in the conversation. They feel like they are, oh my gosh, I have his full attention, right? And so often we are allowing ourselves to get distracted. We start having a conversation in our own head, and we're not listening. And I think all the things that you've talked about, they're things that I talk about and that we teach in our programs, in our Negotiation 101 program, our Venn Masters program. And we're getting ready to launch a new program related to our book, Why Not Ask? And it's a Why Not Ask seminar that people can take on their own. And we're dropping the audio version of the book, and we're going to release that program at the same time with the audio book. And I think that what you are doing, what you've done naturally as a way of compensating, because you're like, I do not have this. I'm not going to let this hearing loss impact me. I don't have a hearing loss. You were really fighting. And we've talked before about how you fought. You actually, and I used to feel this way for different reasons, a bit of a chip on your shoulder to say, to heck with this. I don't care. I'm just going to, and you've built this incredible, successful practice, by compensating and figuring out tools and mechanisms that give you the ability to hear more intently, to hear more intently, with more intent and with more intensity. Yep. And, as we were talking yesterday, because we had a beautiful conversation yesterday, and it was like, I hope now that you have the hearing aids that you don't lose some of that, because I think that it's so valuable and so integral to what you do and how you've built your success, that my reaction last night, as I was kind of going over our conversation, was, I hope he doesn't lose some of those things. And
I was worried about that at the time. I think it's only going to be a plus. I'm just seeing I am going to lose some of the ability as far as decoding language without the hearing aids, but the upside is so much greater, so much bigger. The other thing, just talking with you, I'm just remembering, so early on when I was a kid, I think of myself as when I was a kid, I was negotiating with Walmart on a massive commodity. And so it was a very aggressive negotiation, very aggressive. And I was a kid. Because of the hearing issue, everything that we're talking about, I'm realizing right now, that's the reason I behaved the way I did. During the negotiation with Walmart, the buyer at Walmart took my business card, wadded it up in his hands in a little ball, and took it and threw it right in my face and hit me in the face with it. And so I'm like, okay, so I mean, so what? I mean, what does that mean? And so I didn't let it phase me. I didn't do anything. And number one, I did not bow into his demands. He was furious with us because of the position I was taking. And it was wrong for us to go where he wanted us to go. We weren't going to, and it's just not. It wasn't right. And I knew exactly what he was doing, but I held my guns, and I don't think I would have ever done that had I not had naturally my system of leaving a meeting before I really take any major action. I just do that so often. When he was trying to manipulate me in such a way to take action in that meeting, that would have been very negative for our company if I had taken the bait, so to speak. The other thing, because of the way I listen, I think I'm confident that it creates incredible relationships, positive relationships for me, for the people that I'm able to connect with, and that I can get through, my hearing issues. For instance, so I have an executive, my company board. I have about 12 people on my board. So the average tenure of the people on my board are like 40 years. It's 40 years. There's a couple of people on the board of directors, on my board, for my board of advisors for my company, I've known over 50 years.
Wow.
Exactly. And so I think that's part of it. I don't really fully understand it, but I do know it's part of it. One of the things, my roommate in college ended up becoming a deputy director of the FDA. And so, I'm a consultant in the food industry. So unbelievable. How could that have happened? Or it's just really very fortuitous. We haven't done anything that is, we've reported everything to there's an ethics department within the FDA. They fully know about our relationship, and we had to go to them before he's actually an advisor to my company. But everything's totally above board, and there's not been any kind of, it's been very beneficial, very, very beneficial to have that relationship and have his advice and guidance and friendship. At the same time, we've not done anything that's anyway negative or would be considered negative, but it's just it's just incredible. But the hearing, I know the way I develop relationships and friendships, that plays into it. I don't fully understand it though.
Well, I'm just thinking about our relationship, right? And yesterday, like, we spent 2 hours on the phone just getting to know each other at a much deeper level, and which is such an honor to be able to do that. And I think that now that we've known each other for a while, what I see that you do very effectively and more effectively than a lot of people in the hearing universe is you're so patient with people. You let people take their time. You let people come to you when they're ready. You meet them part way, but you're very comfortable just drawing things out of somebody. And that comes from, and I think it comes in part from how you have learned to listen, and the incredible skill of listening that you have developed over your lifetime. And I just think that it's a huge benefit, and something that the hearing world can learn from, that you have overcome that. You developed all these amazing tools that helped you, and have made you have helped grow you into this amazing human being who's done some really amazing work. And
I've never understood, until our conversation today, I've not understood. I'm friends with Amlan Ganguly in Calcutta, India. He was an attorney in India and became very dissatisfied with practicing law there because it really is so unfair to people that don't have the money to hire an attorney. And so he created Prayasam. And in 2014, I reached out to him, and I'm an executive director of Prayasam, just to let you know. And I've helped build schools and done things there. But one of the things that he shared just recently, and I never really understood that. And Emlyn he's a Ford Fellow. He's a part of the Rockefeller Foundation. Also, Adobe is one of their supporters. So it's just he's an incredible person. He's an inspiration for me, and is doing incredible work with the children in the slums of Calcutta, India. But he said, Tim, and he's from India. He said, Tim, you're the first person that has come here who wants to help us and has asked a question, what do you do? And you wanted to know, and you asked a question, and you expected me to tell you how we do things and what we do. You're interested in what our processes are. And he said, that's not normally, particularly someone from America, if they're going to do anything, they might donate some money, or it has something to do, it's a financial, and they walk away. You were just the opposite. You had questions, and you wanted me to tell you and help you understand what it is we do here. And that is definitely, I never thought about it in the context of our conversation today, but that is that process, or that go-to technique that I use all the time to survive. And that's exactly what I did in India.
I think it's incredible. And the work, by the way, that you're doing in India is just remarkable. And I'll put a link into the nonprofit stuff that you do, because I think it's just remarkable. I have loved this conversation, and I hope that everybody who has listened has really listened to hear the things that Tim shared, and all the tools, the tips that he shared. And I am excited to see where you go next, and excited to help you get wherever you're trying to go, and do what I can to help you do that, because I think what you do is really special. And I think you're a very special person. So thank you so much, Tim, for joining me today to have this conversation. And for everybody, just remember that if you are, if you are blessed enough to have all of your hearing, understand that that's not the case for everybody. Slow down, take time. These are things that are going to help you, whether you can hear or whether you have a hearing impairment. And just know that taking time, slowing down, listening actively, being very focused, being very present in the moment with the people that you're talking to is going to actually help you immensely in your negotiation. So happy negotiating. And remember, negotiation is a conversation about a relationship, and you cannot win a relationship, but you can get more value out of it. Thanks very much. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Christine.
Everybody have a great day.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay. We invite you to visit our website at www.ven.zone to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Empower the negotiator in you and successfully level the playing field. Join us again next time here on In the Ven Zone.